3 months before the council meeting, Dr. Helen Carter walked through the underground tunnels beneath Nevada's mountains. The facility was so deep that most people forgot it existed. Miles above her head, desert stretched in all directions, under the burning sun. Down here, the most important project in human history was taking shape. General Paul Mitchell stood in front of a massive metal door that was 12 feet thick. Behind that door was something that could change everything. Helen had spent 5 years of her life working on the project, and she still could barely believe it was real. "Are you sure this will work?" Paul asked as he entered his security code. "As sure as I can be," Helen replied. "The math checks out. The simulations all show the same result, but we won't know for certain until we test it against the real thing." The door opened with a soft hiss. Beyond it lay a chamber the size of an airplane hangar. In the center sat what looked like a normal starship engine, except it glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. For the past 2 years, Helen's team had been studying every piece of information they could find about the Void Hunters. While other species focused on building bigger guns and thicker armor, the humans had taken a different approach. They wanted to understand their enemy. The Void Hunters had attacked 17 different star systems in the past decade. Each time they used the same tactics. Their bioships worked together like a single organism, moving in perfect coordination. Where other fleets needed radio communications and command ships, the Void Hunters seemed to share one mind. "It's quantum entanglement," Helen had explained to the research team 6 months ago. "Their ships are connected on a subatomic level. When one ship learns something, they all learn it instantly. When one adapts to a new weapon, they all adapt." That discovery had led to the Prometheus Protocol. Instead of trying to outfight the Void Hunters, humanity would try to outthink them. Captain Ryan Hayes received his orders in a sealed envelope marked with classifications so high that most people did not even know they existed. He read the documents 3 times before he understood what they were asking him to do. The Independents would not be fighting in the traditional sense. Neither would the 6 other ships assigned to his task force. The USS Freedom, USS Liberty, USS Defiance, USS Resolve, USS Phoenix, and USS Ranger had all been modified in secret shipyards. From the outside, they looked like normal human vessels. Inside, they carried technology that no other species had ever imagined. Lieutenant Amy Foster ran her hands over the new control panels that had been installed on the Independence's bridge. The quantum disruptor array took up most of the ship's lower decks. The weapon did not fire bullets or energy beams. Instead, it attacked the invisible connections that held the enemy fleet together. "It's like cutting the strings on a puppet," Amy explained to the other officers. "The Void Hunters use quantum entanglement to coordinate their attacks. If we can disrupt those connections, their ships will become confused and scattered." Chief Kevin Barnes worked in the engine room making sure the massive power systems could handle the strain. The quantum disruptors needed more energy than any weapon ever built. Every other system on the ship had been modified to feed power to the array. Life support, artificial gravity, even the lights had been designed to run on minimal energy when the time came. "One shot," Kevin told his engineering team. "We get one chance to make this work. If we miss or if the power systems fail, then we're just another small ship in a very big battle." Colonel Steve Adams briefed his Marines on their role in the mission. They would not be boarding enemy ships or defending the Independence from attack. Instead, they would coordinate with the surviving alien fleets after the quantum attack. "The Void Hunters will be confused, but they won't be helpless," Steve explained. "We need to guide the other ships to take advantage of the situation. Think of yourselves as orchestra conductors, but instead of music, you're conducting a battle." The Salk human fleet took its assigned position in the outer system, far from where the main battle would take place. To the alien commanders, it looked like cowardice. The humans were hiding behind asteroids and empty space, afraid to face the enemy directly. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the alien fleets move into position. The Zephyrian battlecruisers formed a wall of metal and energy weapons. The Kralian world breakers took positions where they could use their massive guns to maximum effect. The ethereal collective's phase ships flickered in and out of normal space like deadly ghosts, It was an impressive sight. Thousands of ships from a dozen different worlds all working together to face a common threat. The combined firepower could destroy entire planets. The shields and armor could withstand attacks that would melt asteroids. But Jake knew something the aliens did not. Raw firepower would not be enough to stop the Void Hunters. The enemy had faced similar fleets before and destroyed them all. Traditional tactics had failed every time, because the Void Hunters could adapt faster than any normal fleet could change strategy. "Are all ships ready?" Jake asked his communications officer. "Yes, sir. All 7 vessels report ready for Prometheus protocol activation." Jake nodded and opened a private channel to Captain Hayes. "Ryan, you understand what we're asking you to do?" "Yes, sir." Ryan's voice came back clear and steady. "We're going to change the rules of the game." In the distance, space began to shimmer as the Void Hunters prepared to enter the system. Soon, the largest battle in galactic history would begin. The alien fleets were confident in their strength and numbers. They had no idea that the outcome would be decided not by the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons, but by 7 small human vessels that most people considered irrelevant. Helen Carter watched from the command center deep beneath Nevada's mountains. Her life's work was about to be tested in the most important battle humanity had ever fought. In a few hours, they would discover if human ingenuity could overcome an enemy that had never been defeated. The great glass dome of Nexus Prime stretched high above the council chamber. 12 different alien species sat in a circle, each one bigger and more impressive than the last. The air buzzed with different languages and the sound of breathing, from creatures that came from distant worlds. Admiral Jake Morrison walked into the center of the circle. His dark blue uniform looked plain next to the shining armor and robes of the alien delegates. Behind him, Commander Lisa Rodriguez carried a small datapad. The information on it would decide if Earth would fight alongside these powerful beings or be left behind. The Zephyrian ambassador rose from his seat. He stood nearly 10 feet tall, with 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. His skin looked like liquid silver that moved and changed color when he breathed. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. "Humans," he said, looking down at Jake. "Show us what your tiny world can offer against the Void Hunters." Lisa stepped forward and activated a hologram. The image showed Earth's entire space fleet floating in the darkness. 47 ships in total, 12 destroyers that looked like metal sharks, 8 cruisers with their gun ports clearly visible, 3 small carriers that could launch fighter ships. Compared to the massive fleets shown earlier, it looked like toys in a sandbox. The Kralian War Master made a sound that might have been laughing. The creature looked like someone had crossed a rhinoceros with a giant insect. Its thick armor plating was covered in scars from 1,000 battles. When it laughed, the sound was like metal grinding against stone. 47 ships, the War Master said. "We brought 800 vessels. Each one of our dreadnoughts is larger than your biggest ship." The Ethereal Collective's representative said nothing, but Jake could feel its amusement. The being was pure energy trapped inside a crystal container that floated 3 feet off the ground. Light pulsed through the crystal in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Captain Ryan Hayes stood near the back of the human group. At 32, he was the youngest fleet commander anyone had ever seen. His ship, the USS Independence, was humanity's newest and best vessel. Even so, he knew it would look like a mosquito next to the alien warships. An older alien with gray skin and too many eyes spoke up. "Perhaps the humans could guard our supply lines," it suggested. "Stay far from the real fighting where they will be safe." More laughter filled the chamber. The sound came from a dozen different throats and made a noise like a broken orchestra. Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. "We accept whatever role the council assigns," Jake said. His voice was steady and professional. "Earth stands ready to do its part." The Zephyrian ambassador waved one of his 4 hands. "Then, it is decided. The human fleet will take rearguard position. They will stay in the outer system and watch for stragglers." Ryan watched the other fleet commanders point to positions on the star map. The Zephyrians would take the center with their massive battle cruisers. Each ship was over 1 kilometer long and bristled with energy weapons that could melt asteroids. The Kralians positioned their world breakers at key points. These ships were built to crack planets and turn moons into dust. The ethereal collective marked their positions with pulsing lights. Their ships could phase in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy lines like ghosts. The other species each had their own special advantages: advanced shields, powerful weapons, ships that could move faster than light in the middle of battle. Lisa looked at the tactical display and felt her heart sink. Humanity was being placed so far from the main battle that they might as well not be there at all. The nearest enemy contact would be light hours away from their assigned position. Is there anything else the human delegation wishes to add? The Cypherian ambassador asked. His tone made it clear he thought the answer was no. Jake looked around the chamber at the alien faces. Some looked bored. Others seemed amused. A few appeared to have already forgotten the humans were there. He had seen this look before, back when he was a young officer trying to prove himself to senior commanders who thought he was too inexperienced. Only this, Jake said. When the Void Hunters come, they will find us ready. The War Master made that grinding laugh again. Ready with your 47 little ships? Ready with everything we have, Jake replied. The council session ended with the aliens discussing final preparations. They talked about formations and firepower, about which species would lead the charge and which would provide support. The humans were mentioned only once when someone asked if the rear guard position was far enough away to keep them out of trouble. As the delegates filed out, Ryan heard fragments of conversation in languages he did not understand, but he caught enough words to know what they were saying. The aliens thought Earth's fleet was a joke. They believed humans would run at the first sign of real danger. Commander Lisa Rodriguez walked beside Jake as they left the council chamber. 47 ships against an enemy that destroyed the Centauri colonies, she said quietly. Maybe they're right to put us in the back. Jake stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression was serious, but there was something else in his eyes, something that looked almost like anticipation. Lisa, he said, sometimes the best place to be is where nobody expects you to make a difference. Ryan overheard the comment and felt a strange chill run down his spine. There was something in the Admiral's voice that suggested this was far from over. Something that made him think the aliens might have made a very big mistake. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the tactical display. The main battle was almost over. The alien fleets that had seemed so powerful were scattered and broken. Burning ships drifted through space while the Void Hunters closed in for the final assault. All human vessels, this is Morrison. He spoke into his communications device. Activate Prometheus Protocol. I repeat, activate Prometheus Protocol. Captain Ryan Hayes felt his heart rate increase as he gave the order his crew had been waiting for. Lieutenant Foster, begin quantum disruptor sequence. Chief Barnes, divert all power to the array. The Independence began to change. Lights dimmed throughout the ship as every available unit of energy flowed toward the quantum disruptor array. The weapon did not look impressive from the outside. It was not a giant gun or a missile launcher. Instead, it was a collection of crystalline structures that hummed with barely contained energy. Amy Foster's hands moved across her control panel with practiced precision. Quantum field generators are online, targeting the enemy fleet's entanglement network. The 6 other human ships moved into position around the Independence. The USS Freedom, USS Liberty, USS Defiance, USS Resolve, USS Phoenix, and USS Ranger spread out in a formation that created a massive triangle in space. Each ship was a point in a geometric pattern that would focus their combined attack. Chief Kevin Barnes monitored the power flow from the engine room. The quantum disruptors required more energy than any weapon ever built. Every system on the ship had been designed to feed power to this one device. Life support ran on emergency power. The artificial gravity flickered. Even the bridge lights were dimmed to almost nothing. Power at 90% and rising, Kevin reported. All systems stable. We're going to get our shot. On the other human ship, similar preparations were taking place. 7 crews working as one unit, timing their attack down to the microsecond. The quantum disruptors had to fire at exactly the same moment, or the interference pattern would not form correctly. Colonel Steve Adams and his Marines prepared for the second phase of the operation. Once the quantum network was disrupted, the Void Hunters would become vulnerable, but they would also become desperate and unpredictable. The surviving alien fleets would need coordination and tactical guidance to take advantage of the situation. Remember, Steve told his communications team, we need to get the alien commanders working together. Right now, they're panicking. We need to turn that panic into organized action. In the main battle, the Void Hunters were pressing their advantage. Their bioships moved through the scattered Alliance forces like sharks through a school of fish. Each attack was perfectly coordinated with every other ship in the fleet. The Zephyrian ambassador, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperate fear, tried to organize the survivors into a final defensive position. All remaining vessels formed defensive sphere around the hospital ships. We must protect the wounded. But the Void Hunters anticipated every move. When the Alliance ships moved to protect the hospital vessels, bioships were already waiting in ambush. When they tried to retreat, enemy forces cut off their escape routes. The hive mind that connected the Void Hunter fleet made conventional tactics useless. Admiral Tran Vex of the Ethereal Collective watched his phase ships die one by one. These vessels could move between dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will. They had been his greatest tactical advantage, but somehow the Void Hunters could track them even when they were outside normal space. How do they know where we are? His tactical officer asked. We're using technology they've never encountered before. They adapt, Vex replied grimly. They learn from every attack, every defense. We're not fighting ships. We're fighting evolution itself. Back on the Independence, the quantum disruptors reached full power. Amy Foster watched her instruments as the 7 human ships synchronized their targeting systems. They were not aiming at the Void Hunter ships themselves. Instead, they were targeting the invisible quantum connections that held the enemy fleet together. Quantum field alignment at 100%, Amy reported. All ships report ready for firing sequence. Ryan Hayes looked around his bridge, at the crew members who had trained for this moment. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried before in the history of galactic warfare. Success would turn the tide of battle. Failure would leave humanity's small fleet exposed to an enemy that had never been defeated. All stations report ready, sir, Amy said. Ryan opened a communication channel to the other 6 ships. This is Hayes to all vessels. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. 7 quantum disruptor arrays fired at exactly the same moment. The weapons did not create visible beams or explosions. Instead, they generated a field of quantum interference that spread through space faster than light itself. The effect on the Void Hunter fleet was immediate and dramatic. For the first time in their recorded history, the bioships stopped moving in perfect coordination. Individual vessels began turning in different directions. Some slowed down, while others accelerated. The perfect unity that had made them unstoppable started to fall apart. On the hive ships, biomechanical minds that had been connected for millennia suddenly found themselves alone. The quantum entanglement network that allowed instant communication across the fleet simply stopped working. Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display as confusion spread through the enemy fleet. All human vessels, Phase 2 is now active. Begin coordination with Allied forces. Colonel Adams and his Marines took over the communication networks. They had studied the tactical patterns of every species in the Alliance. Now they used that knowledge to guide the scattered alien forces into an effective counterattack. Zephyrian vessels, this is Human Tactical Command, Steve spoke into his communicator. Enemy coordination is disrupted. Reform attack formations, and target the largest bioships. The Zephyrian ambassador heard the transmission and felt a moment of confusion. The humans were giving tactical advice, the same species whose tiny fleet had been dismissed as insignificant. But as he looked at his tactical display, he saw that the human advice was correct. The Void Hunter ships were no longer moving in coordination. They could be attacked with conventional weapons and tactics. All Zephyrian vessels, the ambassador ordered, follow human tactical guidance, reform attack formation, and engage the enemy. Similar transmissions went out to every surviving ship in the Alliance fleet. The humans, from their rear guard position, began coordinating the largest counterattack in galactic history. The species that had been written off as too weak to matter were suddenly the most important commanders in the battle. 6 months after the battle, the Galactic Council met again on Nexus Prime. The same glass dome stretched high above the chamber, but everything else had changed. The seating arrangement was different now, with Earth's delegation positioned among the major powers instead of standing in the center like supplicants. Admiral Jake Morrison sat at the council table wearing a new uniform. The insignia on his shoulders marked him as Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense Forces, a position that had been created specifically for him. Around the table, the same alien representatives who had dismissed humanity now listened carefully to every word he spoke. Captain Ryan Hayes, now promoted to Admiral, presented the quarterly defense report. The quantum disruptor network had been expanded to cover 12 star systems. More importantly, the technology had been shared with all Alliance species, creating a unified defense grid that no enemy could penetrate. The Void Hunter threat has been neutralized in this sector, Ryan reported. Our deep space scouts report no organized enemy activity within 50 light-years of Alliance territory. The Zephyrian ambassador, who had once laughed at humanity's small fleet, nodded approvingly. The humans have exceeded every expectation. Their tactical innovations have revolutionized galactic warfare. Dr. Helen Carter had become the most famous scientist in the galaxy. Universities on dozens of worlds offered her honorary degrees and research positions, but she had chosen to remain on Earth, continuing her work on quantum technology applications. Her latest project involved communication networks. The same quantum entanglement principles that had disrupted the Void Hunters could be used to create instant communication across galactic distances. For the first time in history, the scattered worlds of the Alliance could coordinate their activities in real time. General Paul Mitchell stood before a holographic display showing the new Galactic Defense Network. Human ships, still the smallest in any fleet, were positioned at key points throughout Alliance space. But now they were not alone. Each human vessel was accompanied by ships from other species, all working together under unified command. The integration process has been more successful than we hoped, Paul explained to the council. Mixed crews are operating at 95% efficiency. Language barriers have been overcome and cultural differences have become tactical advantages. Commander Lisa Rodriguez had been given command of the new Joint Species Destroyer Squadron. Her ship, the USS Valor, now flew alongside Zephyrian energy cruisers and Kralian assault vessels. The crews had learned to work together, combining human tactical thinking with alien firepower and technology. It's amazing how much we can accomplish when we stop looking at our differences and start focusing on our strengths, Lisa told her mixed crew during a training exercise. The War Master of the Kralian fleet had become one of humanity's strongest supporters. The proud warrior who had dismissed Earth's small fleet now requested human tactical officers for all major operations. Humans think like warriors but fight like scientists, the War Master explained to other commanders. They study their enemies and find weaknesses that pure strength cannot exploit. Lieutenant Amy Foster, promoted to commander, now taught quantum warfare tactics at the new Galactic Defense Academy. Students from dozens of species attended her lectures, learning how human innovations had changed the nature of space combat. Chief Kevin Barnes had been appointed head of engineering for the CURE quantum disruptor program. His teams worked around the clock to build new installations and maintain existing ones. The technology that had once been humanity's greatest secret was now the foundation of galactic security. Colonel Steve Adams led the new multi-species tactical coordination corps. His Marines worked alongside alien soldiers, teaching the art of combined operations to forces that had never cooperated before. Every species brings something unique to the table, Steve explained to a class of mixed cadets. Our job is to combine those strengths into something greater than the sum of its parts. The Ethereal Collective's Admiral Vex had requested permanent human liaison officers for his fleet. The beings of pure energy had found that human tactical thinking complemented their phase technology in unexpected ways. Your species sees patterns that we miss, Vex told Admiral Morrison during a planning session. You think in 3 dimensions while we exist in many. Together we cover possibilities that neither could achieve alone. As the council session continued, representatives from newly contacted species requested to join the alliance. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the defeat of the Void Hunters. Worlds that had lived in fear now saw hope in the form of the Quantum Defense Network. Admiral Morrison stood to address the council as the session drew to a close. 6 months ago, this council assigned humanity to rear guard duty because our fleet was small. Today we coordinate the defense of 47 star systems with over 10,000 ships. He paused to look around the chamber at faces that had once shown amusement or dismissal. Now they showed respect and attention. We've learned that strength isn't measured in the size of your ships or the power of your weapons. It's measured in your ability to work together, to think beyond conventional solutions, and to never give up when faced with impossible odds. The Zephyrian ambassador rose from his seat. Admiral Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I want to formally apologize for our initial assessment of humanity's capabilities. We judged you by our own standards and failed to recognize your unique strengths. Jake accepted the apology with a smile. No apology necessary, Ambassador. You gave us exactly what we needed, the chance to prove ourselves. As the council session ended, representatives from different species gathered in small groups to discuss future cooperation. The chamber that had once been divided by species lines now buzzed with cross-cultural conversations and joint planning sessions. Captain Hayes, now Admiral Hayes, stood with Admiral Morrison as they watched the aliens work together. Do you think they'll remember this lesson the next time they encounter a species they don't understand? Jake considered the question as he watched a Kralian engineer explain armor technology to a group of ethereal scientists. I think they're starting to understand that every species has something valuable to contribute, even the ones that seem small and insignificant. Outside the council chamber, human ships patrolled alongside alien vessels in formations that would have been impossible just months ago. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most powerful force is not the biggest gun or the strongest armor, but the willingness to think differently and work together. The small fleet that had once been laughed at now led the greatest alliance in galactic history. And in the depths of space, where new threats might one day emerge, the Quantum Defense Network stood ready, powered by human innovation and protected by the combined strength of dozens of worlds working as one. The Void Hunters arrived like a shadow falling across the stars. Space itself seemed to darken as their fleet emerged from hyperspace. 3,000 ships of different sizes filled the view screens of every vessel in the Galactic Alliance. The smallest were the size of cruisers, moving through space like living things. The largest were hive ships that dwarfed even the Kralian world breakers. Admiral Tran Vex of the Ethereal Collective felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Of warfare, genuine fear. The bioships moved in patterns that defied logic. They flowed around each other like schools of fish, but each one was a vessel of war, capable of destroying entire fleets. The Zephyrian ambassador gave the order to attack. His battle cruisers opened fire with energy weapons that could melt asteroids. Beams of pure plasma struck the Void Hunter ship's dead center. For a moment, the Alliance commanders thought they had scored easy victories. Then the bioships began to change. Their outer hulls shifted and adapted, becoming reflective surfaces that bounced the energy attacks back toward the Alliance fleet. What had been devastating weapons became useless light shows that accomplished nothing. Impossible, the Zephyrian gunner reported. Their armor is adapting to our weapons in real time. The War Master of the Kralian fleet ordered his world breakers forward. These massive ships moved slowly, but their weapons could crack planets. Surely nothing could adapt to that level of raw destruction. The first volley from the world breakers struck 3 Void Hunter vessels. The explosions lit up space like miniature suns. When the light faded, the bioships were gone, reduced to scattered atoms. But the celebration was short-lived. The other Void Hunter ships immediately began changing their formations. They moved faster, twisting and turning in ways that made them almost impossible to target. The slow, powerful weapons of the world breakers could not track the suddenly agile enemy vessels. Commander Lisa Rodriguez watched the battle from the rear guard position. Her destroyer, the USS Valor, was too far away to participate, but the Long-range sensors showed her everything. The alien fleets that had seemed so powerful just hours ago were being systematically destroyed. The ethereal ships are trying to phase behind enemy lines, her tactical officer reported. But somehow the Void Hunters are tracking them, even when they're out of normal space. Lisa watched as 3 ethereal vessels materialized behind the enemy fleet, only to find Void Hunter bioships waiting for them. The ambush had become a trap. The phase ships, caught between dimensions, could not escape before the bioships tore them apart. The Void Hunters fought like a single organism with 3,000 bodies. When one ship learned how to counter a new weapon, every ship in the fleet instantly knew the same information. When one adapted to a defensive tactic, they all adapted together. Admiral Vex tried to coordinate a retreat, but even that became impossible. The bioships seemed to predict every move the Alliance made. They cut off escape routes before the Alliance commanders even gave the orders to retreat. Captain Rodriguez received fragmentary communications from the main battle. Ship after ship reported critical damage or total destruction. The Zephyrian battle line was breaking apart. The Kralian world breakers were being surrounded by swarms of smaller bioships that ate through their armor like acid. "This is ethereal. Command to all remaining vessels." Admiral Vex's voice came through heavy static. "We are requesting immediate assistance from any available units. Repeat, we need immediate assistance." The proud Zephyrian ambassador, who had laughed at humanity's small fleet, now broadcast a desperate plea for help. "All ships, all species, converge on Sector 7 for final defensive action. This includes rearguard units." Lisa looked at her communications officer. "Sir, should we respond?" Before she could answer, Admiral Jake Morrison's voice came through on a secure channel. "All human vessels maintain current positions. Do not engage the enemy. Repeat, do not engage." On the Independence, Captain Ryan Hayes watched the battle through his ship's sensors. The alien fleets were being destroyed exactly as Dr. Carter had predicted. The Void Hunters' ability to adapt and coordinate was too strong for conventional warfare. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Foster reported, "we're receiving multiple distress calls from Alliance ships. They're asking for all available vessels to join the fight." Ryan felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every instinct told him to help the dying crews in the main battle, but his orders were clear. The mission depended on staying hidden until the right moment. "Maintain position," he ordered. "Continue charging the quantum disruptor array." Chief Kevin Barnes monitored the power systems as energy built up in the quantum disruptors. The process was slow and required enormous amounts of power. Every minute, they waited. More Allied ships died in the main battle. But rushing the process would mean failure for everyone. The Void Hunter hive ships began deploying swarms of smaller craft. These fighters moved through space like living insects, each one capable of growing larger by consuming metal and energy from destroyed ships. The Alliance crews watched in horror as their fallen vessels became food for the enemy. Colonel Steve Adams prepared his Marines for the second phase of the operation. Once the quantum disruptors fired, the real battle would begin. The confused Void Hunters would still be dangerous, but they would be vulnerable for the first time in galactic history. "Remember," Steve told his troops, "we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy. The aliens might not think much of us right now, but that's about to change." In the main battle, the situation became desperate. Over 60% of the Alliance fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The surviving ships clustered together in defensive formations, but the Void Hunters surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. The War Master of the Kralian fleet sent one final message before his flagship was overwhelmed. "To any who survived this day, remember that we stood together against the darkness. Do not let our sacrifice be in vain." Admiral Morrison received the transmission and felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Thousands of brave beings from dozens of worlds were dying while his fleet waited in safety, but he knew that moving too early would doom everyone. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "Captain Hayes signals ready for Prometheus protocol activation." Jake looked at the tactical display one more time. The timing had to be perfect. Too early, and the Void Hunters would adapt to the attack, Too late, and there would be no Allied fleet left to coordinate with. Signal all ships, ordered. Prepare for Prometheus Protocol on my mark. The quantum interference field spread through the Void Hunter fleet like a virus attacking a computer network. Bioships that had moved with perfect coordination for thousands of years suddenly found themselves isolated and confused. The hive mind that had made them unstoppable was broken. Captain Ryan Hayes watched his tactical display as the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Individual bioships turned in different directions, some attacking their own allies in the confusion. The massive hive ships, which had coordinated the entire assault, now drifted helplessly as their command networks failed. "It's working," Lieutenant Amy Foster reported with excitement in her voice. "The quantum entanglement network is completely disrupted. They can't communicate with each other anymore." Admiral Jake Morrison opened communication channels to every surviving ship in the Alliance fleet. "All vessels, this is Human Command. The enemy coordination network has been destroyed. You are clear to engage with conventional tactics." The response was immediate. Zephyrian battlecruisers that had been retreating in panic suddenly turned to face the enemy. Their energy weapons, which had been useless against the adaptive bioarmor, now struck targets that could not share defensive information with the rest of the fleet. The War Master of the Kralian fleet gave a roar of triumph that echoed through the communication networks. "Worldbreakers, advance and engage. Show these creatures what happens when they face the might of Kralia." The massive Kralian ships moved forward with renewed purpose. Their planet-cracking weapons found targets that could no longer dodge with impossible coordination. Bioships that had seemed invincible just minutes ago exploded in brilliant flashes as the Worldbreakers' guns found their marks. Admiral Tran Vex ordered his remaining phase ships into action. The ethereal vessels appeared behind enemy lines, but this time, the Void Hunters could not coordinate their response. Individual bioships tried to fight back, but without the hive mind to guide them, they were just animals acting on instinct. Colonel Steve Adams coordinated the counterattack. From the Independence, his Marines had studied the tactical patterns of every Alliance species, and now they used that knowledge to maximum effect. "Zephyrian Fleet, concentrate fire on grid reference 77 Alpha, Steve commanded. "Kralian vessels, move to support. Position Beta and prepare for bombardment sequence." The alien commanders who had dismissed human tactical knowledge just hours ago now followed every order without question. The humans had done something that seemed impossible. They had found a way to defeat an enemy that had never lost a battle. Captain Lisa Rodriguez led her destroyer and 2 other human ships toward the main battle. The quantum disruptors had done their work, but now conventional weapons were needed to finish the job. "Target the bioships that are trying to re-establish communication," Ryan ordered over the tactical network. "If they manage to reconnect their network, we'll be back where we started." The human ships moved with precision through the battle zone. They were still the smallest vessels in the fight, but now they were directing the actions of fleets that could destroy star systems. The Void Hunter hive ships, cut off from their fleet network, began trying to escape. These massive vessels had never retreated from a battle before, but without their coordination advantage, they were vulnerable to concentrated attack. "All available vessels, priority target designation," Admiral Morrison announced. "The hive ships are trying to retreat. Do not let them escape to rebuild their network." The combined Alliance fleet converged on the fleeing hive ships. Zephyrian energy weapons weakened their bioarmor. Kralian planet crackers shattered their hulls. Ethereal phase ships appeared inside the massive vessels to destroy them from within. One by one, the great hive ships died. Each explosion lit up space like a dying star, and with each death, the Void Hunter fleet became more disorganized and desperate. Amy Foster monitored the quantum field from her station on the Independence. "Sir, I'm detecting attempts to re-establish entanglement connections. Some of the smaller bioships are trying to form localized networks." Ryan immediately passed the information to the Alliance fleet. "All vessels, priority targets are any bioships attempting to group together. Break up their formations before they can reconnect." The alien commanders responded instantly. Ships that had been enemies for centuries now worked together with perfect cooperation, all coordinated by the human tactical network. The battle turned from a desperate last stand into a rout. The Void Hunters, stripped of their greatest advantage, found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by forces they had easily defeated just hours before. As the last organized Void Hunter formations broke apart, the Zephyrian ambassador requested permission to come aboard the Independence. The same being who had laughed at humanity's contribution now wanted to meet the commanders who had saved the galaxy. "Admiral Morrison," the ambassador said when he materialized on the human ship's bridge, "I owe your species an apology. We underestimated." Jake accepted the apology with grace, but his attention was focused on the tactical display. Scattered Void Hunter ships were still trying to escape, and each one that got away was a threat to future colonies. "The battle isn't over yet," Jake replied. "But when it is, perhaps we can discuss new arrangements for galactic defense." In the aftermath of the battle, as cleanup operations continued, the alien fleets found themselves following human tactical guidance. The species that had the smallest fleet was now coordinating the actions of thousands of ships from dozens of worlds. Dr. Helen Carter received the battle reports in her underground facility beneath Nevada. The Prometheus protocol had worked exactly as her calculations predicted. The quantum disruptor technology would change galactic warfare forever. But more than that, it had changed humanity's place in the galaxy. The species that had been dismissed as weak and insignificant had proven that intelligence and innovation could overcome any advantage. Captain Hayes stood on his bridge and watched the last Void Hunter ships flee into hyperspace. The threat was not completely eliminated, but it had been broken. More importantly, humanity had earned its place among the galactic powers. "Sir," Amy Foster reported, "we're receiving communication requests from fleet commanders of every allied species. They want to discuss joint tactical operations under human coordination." Ryan smiled as he looked at the tactical display. 47 human ships were now leading a fleet of thousands. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the size of your weapons but from the power of your ideas.